Me, who?
Well, absolutely. And the campers love their counselors and will do anything they see their counselors doing and are constantly emulating what you as a counselor are going to be doing. So you have to make the right decisions to show safe behavior. To know that when we have a plan, we're going to stick to that plan. That we're not going to take shortcuts, especially when it comes to safety. And if you emulate that behavior, the campers will follow.
Now, Josh, you mentioned even before we make the choice to act and act in a way that's consistent with the values that we've had, you mentioned this idea of being prepared and being aware. What are the keys there?
That you have a plan. You know, we don't just choose at the last minute to go rock climbing. If we don't have the right equipment, if we don't have the right training. That there's leadership, there's schedules. Now there's certainly times if we're on the soccer field and kids don't want to play soccer, we can play frisbee golf or ultimate frisbee. But that doesn't mean we go swimming in the beach if there's no lifeguards. We need to be prepared for what the activities are.
Right, and sort of stick to that plan. And then I know you guys talk all the time about the idea of communicating. If we've decided even to play ultimate instead of soccer, we ought to let somebody know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you always want to have a plan, especially for anything where you're moving even a small distance off-site or doing something a little bit different. You want to communicate that to your supervisors, to other groups that you may interact with, so they're prepared for where you are in case of any emergency or anything that comes up. You know, a storm comes up in the middle of the summer. It's important for you to know where you are and how you're going to then respond to that to keep your campers safe and get them back to where they need to be.
I get stories all the time from camp directors, you know, counselors trying to do the right thing, and they're on a camp out, and that example right there that Gareth shared, and they decide to go on a hike. Well, sometimes in the mountains, storms come up really quick, and all of a sudden the counselors or the camp director goes to get the group back, and the group's not there because the counselors thought it'd be a great idea to take a hike. Well, it may be a great idea to take a hike, but we got to make sure we have permission to do that. So if something comes up, we know where to find the group.
This is why we have walkie-talkies or whatever is necessary to kind of vet our plans. Sometimes, and I know we've heard these stories over a long period of time, something seems like a good idea to me at that moment, but if I just take the time to share it with somebody else, someone else is going to have the knowledge or experience to say, I know that sounds like a good idea, but here's why it's not a good idea. Right? So just checking with somebody else. So it's communication kind of amongst ourselves and with the other people who are affected. So let's dive into that idea of, you know, use a walkie-talkie or kind of call other folks. We talked a little bit about collective responsibility. And in supervision, we're pretty much focused on the idea of my individual responsibility for my kids, which is tremendously important. What's our collective responsibility as a staff in this context?
Well, we certainly have, in almost every camp situation, there's other staff around. And when you have a good idea, or you think it's a good idea sometimes, maybe it's not. And so if Gareth and I are co-counselors, me shooting the idea to Gareth saying, hey, I was thinking we would take a hike up the mountain, and this is why. Well, maybe Gareth has some other thoughts. And two minds is always better than one. And in some situations, maybe there's 3 or 4, and we have a discussion, and we make a group decision and figure out what's best.
It kind of works in 2 different ways. If you're brand new, you may not have the experience and may not know, which hikes are the right ones to do, and you may get told quite often by older counselors that, no, this isn't a good idea, this is the way we do it. But it works the other way, too. Older counselors may have tried things and just gotten away with them for a number of times, might have thoughts about, this is the way we've always done it. This is the traditional way we've done at camp. But a new counselor may be seeing things with completely brand new eyes and know that this may not be the best way to do it. We may have a safer way to do it, and to question those things. Just because you've gotten away with something that's unsafe in the past doesn't mean it's something we're going to continue doing.
So what you're saying is you want the first-year counselor or the younger counselor to be open to the idea that they may not know all that they need to know to be able to do their job well. But we want the experienced counselor to be open to the idea that the fresh set of eyes might see something in a way that they just have lost the ability to see it. And they may actually be right, and they may actually be in some ways our conscience around how we choose to approach certain things.
That's right. Safety is everyone's responsibility, and everyone needs to speak up when they think that something may not be the right way to go about it, or something may be a little less safe. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong at that point. What matters is you're now discussing it. and you're getting a sharing of ideas to say what's going to be the best plan to allow our kids to have fun and be safe.
So when a counselor decides that they're going to go climbing when we've taken a group out on a hike, maybe somebody should have said, hey, you know what, that's probably not the right idea. When a counselor decides, let's go rock climbing today, when that wasn't in the plan, all it really would have taken was somebody to have said, I'm not sure that's the right thing for us to do. We heard a couple of stories that remind me that this business of supervision is also about kind of prioritizing my needs as a staff member beneath those of the campers, right? We had a couple of elements in these stories of where the camp staff, the counselor, decided to do something on their own for them.
That's right.
Right? And how does that happen?
Well, yeah, I think it's just important for you to remember the campers have paid, and they're campers, they're at camp. You're at work. That has to come first. The needs of the camper always have to come before your needs as a counselor, especially if it might be something frivolous, something you want to do for fun. You're there to make sure the campers have fun, not to make sure you have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is the classic kind of, it's not about you. We want you to have a great experience this summer. And as we've talked about, you're going to go through your own journey, your own transformation. You will grow as a person. You'll make wonderful friends. This will live with you forever. Trust me, each of us have had these experiences. This will live with you forever in a very positive way. But it's hugely important to understand that you are there for the kids, except for those moments during the long camp season where you're literally off duty, off the campgrounds. When you're working, it's about the kids. And supervision is first and foremost about prioritizing their needs over your own.
So I'm at the waterfront, but I could well be at the pool. Either way, I would be at the most popular place at camp. 3,500 people die by drowning every year in the United States. Counterintuitively, hundreds and hundreds of those who die by drowning are kids who drown in pools with lifeguards on the deck. Hard to believe, but it's true. I spent a lot of years as a lifeguard, and I can tell you that it is difficult to remain vigilant hour after hour after hour in the heat and in the sun with so many kids in our care. And I will speak for every lifeguard who might be watching this video. We need your help. If you're a camp counselor, you might not have signed up this summer to watch the water when your kids are in the pool. But that will be a very important part of your responsibility. Sure, the lifeguards are trained professionals. Sure, the lifeguards have the primary responsibility to take care of the kids in the water. But you have an essential role. If it's younger kids, you've got almost an essential role of probably being in the pool with them most of the time. If they're older kids, you've got an essential role of being on the pool deck and having your eyes on the water. It is difficult to imagine how fast a drowning can happen, but it does. And it happens at camp. It is a devastating thing to have happen to a community, to have a young person snatched from them unnecessarily. But that can happen at camp. The stories we're about to hear are both real and representative of a pattern. As I said, this happens hundreds and hundreds of times each year. Listen to these stories. Think about how you, in your camp's environment and in your camp system, can do all that you can possibly do this summer to make sure that you don't lose any kids at the waterfront or in the pool.
Eric is a young African-American boy who is at camp for the first week. One of the fun things, of course, that we do at camp is we go swimming and the group goes to the pool. Eric doesn't know how to swim. Eric's the kind of boy that is always running around, always smiling, always yelling, having a good time, but usually not behaving very well. His counselors notice this, and they put him in timeout on the bleachers next to the pool. But when they do this, They then stop paying attention to him, and they're talking amongst themselves up against the wall. Eric notices this and thinks, well, I'm going to go back toward the pool. He goes over and sits at the edge of the deep end of the pool. And in this actual security camera footage from the event, you can see he's sitting at the edge of the pool and he starts kicking his feet out while holding onto the edge to play with his friends. You'll also notice there are 5 lifeguards on duty watching this small pool. As he starts kicking his feet out, he slips and he slides into the water. He bobs up to the surface once and goes under. He bobs up and gets his head above the surface again and just barely manages to get one hand up, and then he slips below the surface. At this point, he's below the surface, about a foot, and is struggling and panicking, but can't get his head back up above the water. His friends are playing near him, but don't notice that he's in trouble. After about 10 to 15 seconds, he goes unconscious, and he starts sinking toward the bottom of the pool. After about 2 minutes, one of his friends does notice that he's at the bottom of the pool. He tells his other friends, and they slide down the wall to go tell the lifeguard. The lifeguard walks over and for the first time sees Eric at the bottom of the pool. The lifeguard blows his whistle, which gets the attention of the other guards, and then he dives into the pool. When he pulls Eric up, Eric's unconscious. They pull him up, pull him out of the pool, and try to open his airway and start giving him rescue breaths. After 2 rescue breaths, Eric begins to vomit and begins to cough up water and foam. They roll Eric onto his side and try to keep his airway clear as they wait for EMS, emergency medical services, to arrive. Unfortunately, Eric never regained consciousness. Eric went to the hospital and spent several years in a coma. He had several brain surgeries during that time, none of which were successful. He was pronounced permanently brain dead. After several years in the hospital, the family made the decision to remove life support, and he passed away. So we know when we're at the waterfront in your lake or pond that we need to be extra vigilant because we can't see once a child goes below the surface of the water. A lot of people think that in pools it's easy because we can see the bottom of the pool. But as you'll see in this video, which was put together by an aquatics expert, Tom Griffiths, what we think is clear water is often not clear at all. So when we have a body at the bottom of the pool, or a dummy as you see here, yes, we can see it if no one else is in the water. But if the wind is blowing, and as soon as other people get into the pool and start moving the surface of the water, it becomes invisible on the bottom of the pool. That's why we need to make sure that just like at the waterfront, when we're in the pool, we're using layers of protection to keep the kids safe, making sure that they're tested, marked, and protected or floated, that we're doing the buddy system, and that our lifeguards and counselors are extra vigilant. We can't assume it's safe just because it's a swimming pool. So in this next security camera video, we're going to see an event that took place at a birthday party, not a camp, but the lessons are the same about why layers of protection are needed to keep kids safe in the water. So in this video, Jimmy, who's a 7-year-old boy, is a member of the birthday party. They did not swim test the kids in the party to know who could swim and who couldn't swim. Jimmy was playing in the splash area that you can see on the right side of the screen, and then walks down the stairs into the shallow end. There's one lifeguard who's on scanning duty, and if you watch the lifeguard, you'll notice that he's not doing a bad job. He's moving his head, he's paying attention. You can even see at one point he's counting the people in the zone. But as Jimmy moves out into water at about 3.5 to 4 feet, it's too deep for him. And Jimmy starts to panic. But he's able to bounce off the bottom of the pool to get his head above water. So he'll bounce up, get a breath, swallow some water, and then go under. And as he does this, he can keep himself up and down, but he can't get out of the pool. Jimmy does this for about 2 minutes. And during this time, the lifeguard sees him, but can't tell that he's in distress.